Among the 63 million MSMEs in India, 98% are micro in scale of operations. A little over 100,000 enterprises cross the $1 million revenue threshold, and only 5% of these surpass $3 million. But if failing to scale is an issue, sustainability adds another dimension to this discussion. Climate change is directly impacting productivity, demand, and supply. The physical risks, including flooding, cyclones, drought, and wildfires, cause significant damage to people, property, and critical infrastructure. The World Bank estimates that 1.8 billion people, or 23% of the global population, are directly exposed to flood depths greater than 0.15 meters in a 1 in a 100-year flood event. And around 700 million people are at risk of being displaced due to the drought by 2030. But there is a silver lining. Climate change and the transition to a net zero future could create new industries and new growth opportunities. Can economic growth and scale coexist with sustainability and caring for planet? Join us as we explore the balance between growth and sustainability for a better future.
Scale and sustainability are two pillars that need to coexist for India's MSME sector to thrive amid the climate disruption being seen all over the world. The risks associated with climate change have had a bearing on the MSME sector as well and can expose them to a range of uncertainties and financial hardships. For MSMEs, not only can a sustainable model help to keep such risks at bay, it can also be a major differentiating factor to gain a competitive advantage. The growing network of conscientious consumers is making global brands increasingly look at such compliance requirements from their suppliers. And this is only expected to ramp up in the times to come. To discuss further, this panel on scale and sustainability for Indian MSMEs seeks to delve on some of the opportunities and challenges at play for the sector in this domain. I welcome all the panelists, Rishabh Singh, Managing Partner, Aeravti Ventures, Garima Bharadwaj, Co-founder, Enlite, Tejasvi Suresh Bala, CEO, Swirl Lifestyle, Abhishek Sinha, CEO and co-founder, Dot and Pallab Day, partner and leader, Operations and Manufacturing Consulting, PwC. Welcome everyone. Very warm welcome to all of you for this panel.
Thank you, Neha.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks a lot, Neha.
Thank you so much.
So, I would like to begin with a common question to all of you that, why is scale and sustainability important for the MSME ecosystem? And I'll get a view from each of you, but why don't we first start with Garima on this?
So, Neha, first of all, I'm glad to be a part of panel which is actually speaking sustainability, a term which has stayed in newspapers and magazines for a good long period, and thankfully it has outlived that period, and we see people actually adopting sustainability. The issue with sustainability for the longest time has been that the term that is associated is unaffordable. The moment you think of sustainable anything, it could be clothing, technology, or anything, people always think it is really an expensive proposition. So why go for it without even trying? Now, at least with the advent of technology, what has happened is that there has been affordable innovation in which people have been able to adopt solutions or firsthand at least try out solutions which are sustainable, and at the same time, it can provide them enough amount of scale. If we take some examples around us, there are enough carbon capture technologies which are available. Initially, because of the lack of availability, they were definitely very expensive. If we look at the alternate form of cement building, earlier, there's this huge cement industry with a certain price point. It's not that people are buying it today in a lot of scale, but the availability is definitely significantly higher than what it was before. It is not going to be as affordable as a normal cement or normal brick and mortar is available, because that scale is yet to be achieved. But at least there are enough people in the market which are making this more year on year. Last year, if you would have heard of 9 players doing it, this year you will have at least 19. And companies are getting funded to create the kind of technology, because sustainability definitely has sort of formed the forefront of all the discussions, be it small companies or large companies. In fact, we at Enlite, we exist because sustainability exists. The reason why a company like Enlite exists is because you can create a decarbonized world. We are urbanizing with a breakneck speed in India year on year. We're talking about a built world. By 2050, the buildings that you will have, 80% of them are not, 80% of them are not constructed. And if 80% are not constructed, imagine the kind of industries it's going to impact, from the construction industry to the operational industry. And with so much being created, you are at the end of the day going to create a very inefficient world if you don't think of the sustainability today. If you don't think of what I am going to put in this built world which is around me, and it could be infrastructure, it could be buildings, hotels, hospitals, at the end of the day, now you have to think about it, because now government is coming up with regulations. They are coming up with mandates that, if your utilization is of so much energy, there would be penalties on you. There are building codes which are coming up. But how do you support all of that? You might come up with any regulation, but there needs to be a technology availability. And what we are trying to also do is make that technology affordable and available at mass. You can't have it to be applied to a 10% of the segment, which is a grade A segment. They have money, okay. They already have money. They're already opting for solution. The 90%, the non-grade A segment of the built world is the problem which is trying to rise. The tier 2, tier 3 markets, if we look at it, the builders there, they have no exposure that there is even a technology available. And what I think, be it us or companies like us, what they're trying to do is not only make the solution available, but also let the people know at scale of the availability and make them affordable. I know of many companies today who are in a segment of sustainability making the solution in India. Because when you create something here, develop something here, it has to be affordable. You're not going to import it from Europe and say, hey, this is this amazing technology, but how many buyers are going to be there for that technology? So I think now sustainability and scalability have to go hand in hand. It is no more that I saw this technology when I visited this country and it was amazing. Things have to be made here, for here. And until and unless they're adopted at scale, everything is a very museum talk. Good to see, good to know in presentation, but not really implemented. So when I look at certain numbers, when I look at the built world around us, I know that there is about a wastage of 30% of energy that is happening on a day-to-day basis. And if you look at a country like US, in fact, the kind of energy that they waste is enough for powering Great Britain for 7 years. That's the energy wastage that they have. And until and unless there are sustainable solutions built, whether it's during operational phase of any business or it's during the setup phase, with the lack of those, there will be always talks and there'll be a large gap to fill in that space.
Right. So the affordability, accessibility, availability, all these are very important when it comes to sustainability and scalability. Pallab, what do you want to add to that on what Garima also said?
Yeah, very well explained, Neha. First of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity of being a part of this enlightened panel. The first thing is, scalability part. If you look at the MSME, they are the basic building block of the whole economy. Okay, we know that they contribute 30%, almost 30% of the GDP. 45% of the export actually is contributed by the MSME sector, which was 49% a few years back. I think the last rate has come down to 45%. Now, if you look at the kind of uh, uh, competition or the kind of requirement which is coming from the customers, and also the mindset change in the next gen in terms of going for sustainable product use, If the MSMEs are not adopting sustainability, they will lose the market share, because there are other countries we see like Vietnam, then Cambodia, then those are the countries which are also coming into this uh, in the competing in the market with our MSMEs. So sustainability is something which has to be adopted, and there is no way that we can get away from it. Okay. Now coming to the scalability, if you look at our ambition of increasing the economy size from 3.9 trillion to maybe $5 trillion, and 30% of it is coming from the MSME. And if you look at the manufacturing contribution, which today to the GDP is about 17%, you're going to make it 25%, and almost 40% of that actually is coming from the MSME. So in the next 2 to 3 years, the MSMEs have to double their size. Okay, that's given. If MSMEs are not simply doubling their size in the next 3 to 4 years, we will not be able to achieve the dream of hitting $5 trillion in the next 3 to 4 years time frame. So therefore, the scalability of the MSME becomes very, very important. Now, is the conjunction of scalability and sustainability. Now, if this kind of scalability happens without sustainability, I think we are going to have a disaster, for the environment, for the social, for all those parameters will cause disaster. So it's very important. I think you have rightly chosen the topic at this point in time, that scalability is important for the country's growth and also provide employment. Okay, and at the same time, the scalability with sustainability is the way forward for us.
Right. Of course, I think both have to be in conjunction with each other, as you said. And I want to bring in Rishabh to know your thoughts. Since you also deal with the number of startups who have a climate tech led model. So your thoughts on this?
No, thank you so much for your time and this platform. I think just looking from a business angle, because I think I'm sort of forced to look at sustainability a lot of times through the lens of a business, right? And then that creates a very unique set of problem statements, right? Especially the one of scalability. I think the problem with a lot of MSMEs today that are working in climate tech is that they don't achieve scalability, and that is for a multitude of reasons, right? One of the biggest ones is a very chicken and egg problem, right? Where you look at a lot of companies coming up with really innovative technologies that are able to combat multiple things, right? Be it, let's say, a bioplastic, a mycelium based packaging, whatever it may be, these technologies that are coming out, people are doing amazing work. The thing is that coming from lab, and for us to be able to look at these businesses super early on and then see them move forward, the problem is that a lot of times the things that they develop are not able to be accepted into the market because of price. Why is the price not correct? Because the scalability has not been achieved yet, and the economies of scale haven't been reached. So this chicken and egg problem of, do we aggregate the demand first and then be able to build a product for that, or then aggregate supply and then you have to put up a lot of capital to be able to do that, to then move backwards to find the demand. I think that is a very key challenge that faces a lot of MSMEs who are looking at climate very seriously. I think the key aspect of scalability has to be provided by not just the companies themselves, but all of us. I think every stakeholder in which the environment in which an MSME operates, we need to all collectively support them to be able to succeed, right? Be it a consumer who's having to pay slightly more to be able to be sustainable on whichever platform they're looking at, be it an investor who's taking on early risks to be able to help support climate initiatives going into the future, or be it larger corporations who have the responsibility to be able to not just manage their own waste, but the thousands of people, lakhs of people that work with them, right, over the course of time. So I think collaboration and support is the only way we're going to see scalability be achieved with climate tech over the course of time.
That kind of environment is needed, which can make them thrive and ensure scalability as well. Right. What about you, Abhishek? You are from the food sector, plant-based meat, so to say. What are your thoughts on this?
So first of all, thanks, Neha, for bringing me into this panel. So most importantly, I believe sustainability is not a desirable state of affairs. It's an essential state of affairs, right? And that holds true not just for MSME, but individually, as well as nationally and internationally. We know our resources are limited. And this problem of sustainability raises its important head when we talk about scale. because at scale, the impact is immense. And if it is not sustainable, there are so many negative externalities and everything is interconnected. So we have to be very careful as we scale up that the sustainable practices are embedded into our economic systems and industrial systems. So that is going to be very, very relevant. We have seen the growth of pandemics. We have seen maybe COVID. Now bird flu is raising its ugly head in the US and the entire milk industry. So being in the food space, both at the raw material level, because we have seen this has been one of the hottest summers ever recorded in India. So, and that can have a direct impact on both flora and fauna as well as agriculture. So, from a raw material supply side perspective, there are hidden risks and very, very pertinent risks. And also from a front end perspective, because everyone is interconnected, so unsustainable practices have also economic and social impact. So that also creates a demand side pressure. So we have to be very careful, and we have just one planet, and that is why no more greenwashing will happen. And essentially, we have to have it at a core philosophy everywhere.
Right, and on a similar note, Tejasvi also, from the food sector, what are your, what do you feel about this? How do you view this entire subject?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me into this panel. It's so good to see you all talking. So I believe for an MSME, I would say scale and sustainability goes hand in glove, right? So a business that has established a proof of concept naturally walks into the scale part. And, this way they can contribute better to the investors, to the founders, to the employees, and to the government through taxes. So more business scale in a sustainable way, nation thrives, is what I truly believe. But having the food business sustainable and keeping it sustainable is the most important, because it has customers' welfare at the end of the day. So when customers' welfare are met, the company also gets better, wealthy, and also healthy, is my take.
All right. So we've heard obviously a range of views on this, on how it has to be affordable, on how it is an essential plank. There's no option, and it is the need of the hour, and how they both really need to go together for things to go forward. As far as the MSME sector is also concerned, I want to switch gears a bit and come to Pallab now, and Pallab. Small enterprises have this advantage, compared to larger ones, in terms of their size, of course. They can be more agile as far as reacting to changes in business environment is concerned, and addressing sustainability issues as well. So in what way can they leverage on this advantage?
Yes, I think very well said. So when you do work across, MSME as well as the very large organizations, I find that the decision making is very, very fast, okay, in the MSME, okay. And also, like, for example, when you have a limited operation, it is very easy to, like, you want to change the packaging, okay. For a very large company having pan-India presence, even if you have this, after you have decided, changing that in the warehouses will take 6 months of time. But for a very small company, 50 to 500 crore range, it becomes very easy, okay. And they can take very quick decisions, quick implementations. Implementation can happen. I can see that there are a lot of innovation also which is coming from the sector. Because I see particularly in the medium size sector. The companies having 400 to 500 crore turnover. They are actually very conscious about this sustainability, and they are proactively investing, as well as coming out with some very good innovations, right? So they can definitely leverage these, and why they are doing it. It's not that they will not be able to sell the product, only not be able to sell the product in the market, and the next gen is not is with a different mentality, as I mentioned earlier, but they are also finding it a business benefit. Like, for an example, there are many I have worked with 250 crore turnover companies who are talking about zero discharge, water discharge, okay. So when you actually in your operation, when you reduce your waste, when you reduce your specific energy consumption, specific water consumption, when you reduce your number of incidents and accidents in your shop floor, all those things actually build up the business competitiveness in the market. and you can price. I mean, it gives you the pricing power, because end of the day, the business cost or cost of business, carrying out business actually goes down. So I see that many of these companies have started doing it, but at the same time, at a micro, less than 50 crore companies, it's not so well practiced at this point in time. So I will request all of them, to really understand the advantage they can build, the competitive advantage they can get in the market by embracing sustainability, and really think about it, and then do take actions on that.
You're right, because as you said, they can respond. I mean, they are able to make those changes far more quickly compared to a large organization. So it is something which they can, adopt faster in that sense. On a similar, taking on that thought, Pallab's thought, I want to come to Rishabh. And Rishabh, we touched upon it a bit in, in the common question. But like you, of course, you deal with a lot of such companies which have climate tech or sustainability as its core business model, and even some of the things which Pallab alluded to, that they are they can be pretty dynamic when it comes to these kind of changes within their model. So how do you see that happening in the kind of companies that you interact with? How is India poised, in your view, in this segment?
So I think India is very well poised. I would say that we are in a place where, we have amazing human capital and really, individuals that care about where we live and how we live. And I think that's something that we as Indians have been inculcated with since, our birth. For most Indians, right? They care about their environment. They care about where they come from, and they care about keeping their environment in a better position than where it was. And I think there's a lot of people in the country that also do not care. And I think it's the responsibility of all of us to be able to support them, right? And to be able to move the needle across. And I think in India, particularly, I have a very good view on a lot of great companies building amazing technologies that are able to really transform the way that we look at sustainability, right? So I'll give you an example. We are investing in this company that does concrete 3D printing, right? So they are able to 3D print houses. So sure, it's faster, it may be cheaper. But what's interesting is that because of the way that they construct, they take 30% less concrete per structure that they build, right? So in this business, for example, the environmental impact is inherent to the business, right? And it's able to sort of move forward through innovation and technology, right? The sustainability is something that's coming as a result of the technology and innovation, right? And as a result of the work that the individuals are doing. So I think that we are in a very good place. We have the right environment for MSMEs to take risks. There is risk capital available. There are amazing institutions willing to support you if you're developing new things and new technologies. And there's a great reception from a lot of corporates out there who are willing to adopt. So I think India is very well poised, I think, going into the next decade to come out with a lot of great climate tech and sustainability solutions for the world, not just for India.
Okay, and like future-wise, you see it panning out well as in this segment.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. All right. Garima, I would like to bring you in at this point, and you spoke a little bit about tier 2 cities and how sustainability is integral in across the board. So can you tell us more about how it is integral to the success of small businesses in when we talk about the present time, especially in a sector like real estate?
So interesting thing about real estate is when you look across any tier 1 city, be it Gurgaon, Bombay, Bangalore, they have a set of stellar developers who are doing their work. When you look at tier 2, there are no DLFs, Hiranandani or prestigious to look at, but there will be a local developer. Now, how does a local developer differentiate in a tier 2 becomes very important. And that is where a lot of interesting things are happening in cities like Lucknow, Coimbatore, Madurai, Jaipur. They have certain suite of generation 1 developers who are coming up. And they don't have a legacy of 40, 50 odd years. So they are coming up and developing things for the first time. Now they want to differentiate themselves because they can't have a prestige set up in a Coimbatore which sells out like hotcakes, and these guys who've built out hundreds of units not sell out, which means how do you differentiate? Now, if brand is not on your side because Only unfortunately, you've been not operational for 40, 50 years. You need to differentiate on the offering that you're giving. And which is where I have had interactions from developers across Dehradun to Jaipur, where they're talking about technology. And these were inbound interactions which happened. I couldn't even think that somebody sitting in a Dehradun is developing a township and wants to build something called the first integrated smart township in Dehradun. I mean, what does that even mean? And I've not seen it in any tier one. When I heard from that person, I interacted more, I realized these people understand the importance of technology. It makes them more marketable. It sets a precedent that they are providing something different. They might not come equipped with a Alexa, but they follow certain sustainable practices. I will give you an example of a city. I don't know how many of us might know. There's a place called Yamunanagar in Haryana. It's a tier 3 city. It's not even tier 2. And a developer is building an entire township there, which is only about sustainability, which tracks the water that is harvested, the water that is utilized across all buildings. They do their own organic farming, so you don't have to step out and buy your vegetables and fruits. You literally stay in a farmhouse. That's the entire concept of that area. So in tier 2, what we see is that these guys, unfortunately, still don't have exposure. They do have the intent. And that's what we are seeing a lot in real estate, because I think this is where the most urbanization is happening, at least in our country. There's nothing building like buildings right now across. It could be residential, commercial, infrastructural, data centers, anything. But the only way that any person from a tier 2, tier 3 can match up will not be on the legacy of yours, but on the newness of technology and the kind of sustainability measures that they're able to adopt. Somehow we are still lacking at the part as a country and as a lot of companies who are not able to take these measures to the smaller players, because somehow there is also a lack of intention that, if I'm spending so much time, might as well spend it in a place like Bombay. I will find in more money's worth in spending this time there. But what we're not realizing is that once a tier 2 gets hooked onto any new technology, they actually get hooked onto much faster, because they are just crossing a chasm. They are not going by the traditional methods. Okay, I'm going to build like this, try this out, and then do this. You expose them to a new technology, they'll be much faster in adoption of that. And if we have more measures in place, more exposure of these sustainability practices in place, and more availability of these, because a lot of time their issue is, I've heard of it, but do you know anybody who has it? So until and unless I think we don't have certain basic pillars in place, we'll still be doing a lot of conversation around having adoption of those practices. But once that we can get through the penetration of making the things and the vendors and the technologies available to people in tier 2, tier 3, I'm sure they are a much bigger market than tier 1.
Right. So basically bringing it down to the, lowest level as well. And some beginning has been made, as you gave examples of Dehradun and Yamuna Nagar as well. I think one just has to build on that. And there is a lot of inclination also, you're saying, to take that up, right?
Right.
So again, on just taking on that point, I want to come to Tejasvi. We heard Garima's views as far as real estate was concerned, but I also want to talk a little bit about the food sector, which is seeing a lot of traction in recent times when we talk of sustainable living. So, what do you think has led to this shift in focus, and what does this imply for MSMEs in the trade?
So sourcing food responsibly and minimizing waste and promoting eco-friendly initiatives are crucial for several reasons, especially for a restaurant business. Firstly, the environmental impact that we create, sustainable sourcing involves sourcing farm fresh veggies for our customers, in our case, an antibiotic residue-free meat, and the cheese, from the farms that can procure Emmental and Swiss cheese, Gouda, etc., is going to be slightly expensive. But at the same time, with customer loyalty, and the mass sales that a restaurant should get to, match the procuring it does, we can get better, is what I'm thinking. And waste minimization, reducing food waste helps lower methane emissions from landfalls, right? and that restaurant industry contributes a lot of waste that actually, is real consumable food that can go waste. Now, implementing technology to reduce wastage will help. Will help. You know, the industry itself to produce better brands, sustainable brands, and resource optimization. Will help cost efficiency. Minimizing waste means more efficient use of purchased ingredients, leading to cost savings. And that in that way, restaurants like us, the brand ends up buying less than what it needs to because the waste is minimized. Is what I think.
Okay. And, what does this mean for MSMEs, for more MSMEs who want to get into this sector and who want to take this up? How do you see that?
So, for more MSMEs for coming into the sector, I think it should be a people-driven brand. We'll have to encourage and enlighten people on what we're doing per se. How our practices are sustainable, how we procure it, and stand true to what we're saying. And tell them, the big problem on the ground that we're facing is we can say sustainable and be very sustainable, but a pizza that sells for 350, if you want to procure and sell it with homemade dough, on responsibly sourced dough and the farms procured cheese, doubles its cost. So I would say directly, as summarizing it is, enlightening our customers and having them on board, being a people-driven brand will help an MSME that truly wants to go a sustainable way in India, and especially those brands, that is people-driven.
Okay, all right. And Abhishek, coming to you, we heard Tejasvi's thoughts on this industry and how it can benefit MSMEs. But what are some of the innovations which you are seeing in the food industry from the MSME sector? How are they really taking this forward?
I think now with consumers focus more on healthy ingredients, I think that has been the trend. And that has not just from an MSME perspective, even from the bigger corporates also, that has been the focus. More local ingredients, more seasonal ingredients, less preservatives, less antibiotics in meat. I think this is driven by the consumer demand and consumer awareness. So I do believe, I think this is going to continue. And in fact, the bigger brands as well as MSMEs are very conversant of this particular trend. And, by its very nature, MSMEs are much more, closer to the consumers. And as rightly pointed by, some people in the panel that, MSMEs can respond faster. So I think this presents a great opportunity for MSME companies in the food space to really listen to the trends of consumers and adopt more localized practices and fresher ingredients. I think that is going to be very, very important. Also, obviously not very much right now related to India, but there's a very big movement in the US, which is related to a weight reduction drug called Ozempic, right? And that is creating havoc on the fast food or chips and those kind of sugary products. So if that trend comes to India, I think more, less sugary and less fatty foods will also be the future of food, especially the packed food industry in India. Of course, plant-based alternatives where we operate upon is also gaining in strength because, people are looking to reduce their meat consumption and dairy consumption. So I think that is another trend which is actually very, very relevant. And in terms of India, the plant-based meat category is going to grow very, very strongly on the back of strong, I think, demand for vegetarian products. Because even in India, people who eat meat only eat once or twice in a week, most of them. So by and large, there are vegetarians who happen to eat meat. So not much innovation has been done in the protein nutrition part in the vegetarian space. So that could be a very interesting, green shoot in India.
Is that something? So you see that coming up further
Yeah,
now in the times to come, you're saying?
Absolutely. We see that. Think about it, for example, soy nuggets or soya chop. those are not placed as a meat alternative, but they are being consumed widely across the nation, and that's growing. So that just tells about, there has been data points which point out that 72% of Indians are protein deficient. So that is a major opportunity from a health perspective, which can be, filled by very strongly protein dense vegetarian products. So I do believe the need is massive and latent. With the right product and the right price point, I think that need will become more manifest. So I think that's a big opportunity in the days ahead.
Right, and I think that kind of innovation will obviously create a new category of MSME entrepreneurs as well who are interested in this sector. So opportunity over there. I want to come to Rishabh. Regarding again, we spoke about innovation with respect to food, and you I want to ask you that, what are some of the main factors that you see in companies which have a focus on, sustainability and climate tech? I mean, what is the main area that you see, and what sets some of them apart for you?
Definitely. So I think something that we very deeply look at are B2B businesses. And why I say that in the context of sustainability is because I think the onus of sustainability, a lot of times, the way I think greenwashing has worked is that it put the onus of being sustainable on the consumer. But the thing is that if you just look at how an electronics board is manufactured or how a car is manufactured, they are shipping parts around the world with massive carbon emissions, with massive plastic impact, more than even a single person would do in a year, which is just one product going somewhere, right? So I think it's a very interesting point to look at and to focus on businesses particularly, and that's what we try to do rather than consumers, because I think a lot of the impact is visible to a consumer, but a lot of the sustainability and environmental impact that the rest of the the country's companies are doing is much larger, and that's why we try to focus there. So I think looking there is very important for us. Secondly, I think trying to find sustainability being inherent to the business itself. And when I say inherent, I mean that we try to find businesses where sustainability is it's not a externality, right? Because if it is an externality, it's being priced in by someone, right? Today, it may be the company itself or an investor who's coming on, but for it to be sustainable in the long run, so that you can say that, hey, this company is going to create sustainable impact over the course of decades, I think it's very important for the company to find a really true form of, having the impact be inherent. I'll give you an example of this, right? One of the companies that we worked with, they built the world's first plastic credit platform. So they were able to build a platform which was able to creditize plastic just like carbon and use it all over the world. What was very interesting is that they were working with foreign CPG brands, right, to reduce their plastic impact. But the plastic action that they were doing was happening in India, right? So they were taking foreign capital to solve India's plastic problem, right? So there's some very interesting instances where impact on sustainability can be inherent to the business rather than it being something that's separated from the business itself, right? So that's something that we look at very deeply. And thirdly, I think just being an infrastructure level player where you're coming in at an infrastructure of an industry to solve sustainability on a much larger scale. So these are the sort of three things that we look at when we're trying to evaluate businesses and companies in this sector.
But over time, have you seen a change in the kind of mix that you have of companies who are coming, like in terms of the business model? Are you seeing that diversity at play as well?
Definitely. I think the way the country's ecosystem is evolving, especially around climate tech and sustainability, is very exciting. There's an amazing group of foreign capital and partners that are very interested in building the India sustainability story. There's a big push in India itself through the government and through a lot of policies of pushing sustainability. And third, I think there's a lot of general interest from investors like myself who realize that, hey, we need to deploy capital not just for returns, but for our people in living in the planet and its and the environment, right? So the 3Ps philosophy of investing is something that not just us, but a lot of other investors are adopting over the course of time. And I think, over what I've seen over the past few years and where we are today, I think the diversity of business models, the number of companies out there, and the amount of scale that some of them are able to achieve, this is what's different I've seen in the past few years compared to right now.
Right. Right, of course. And I think it will only build from this point on, given the way India is also gaining awareness and conscientiousness on it. I want to come to Pallab, and once again talk a little bit about manufacturing, because that is an important plank of the economy when it comes to progress and development, and MSMEs form a significant chunk of that sector. So, how well do you see sustainability being embedded within the operations in this sector?
Okay. I think, great question. And as I mentioned that in the next 3 to 4 years, we would expect the MSME contribution, GVA contribution to the GDP from the manufacturing sector, okay, has to double. There is no other way, how we can become a $5 trillion economy. Now, if you look at the MSME, six plus crores, it can be divided into three parts. Now, 99 plus percentage is actually on the micro. Okay. Then you have got 3.3 lakhs of the number of organizations which are in the small, and then you have got 5,000, maybe 4,000 to 5,000 in the medium sector. Now, if you look at the adoption of the sustainability, I see there is a lot of activities in the those 5,000 companies, okay, in the medium sector companies, because they have understood. So they have understood that how it can be beneficial, not only creating the competitive advantage in the market, but it could be beneficial also to reduce the cost of production, okay, and therefore being more competitive in the market, other than the pressure which is coming from the principals and the customers or the consumers to be more sustainable. That is already there, right? As far as the small and micro enterprises are concerned, I think they are constrained in terms of their exposure, in terms of articulating the possibilities, or imagining the possibilities that is there with them, by embracing sustainability, what benefit they can get, and also they are constraint of resources, because normally these are the organizations you'll find not engaging professional consultants to come and support them, to give them some strategy, to help them in implementation. So there I see that is a long way to go. Okay, but good part of the story is that everybody is conscious. Okay, even when we do work with a company having 50 to 60 crores of turnover, it is definitely an agenda of the CXOs and the owners. But it may be only a matter of time that they want to pick it up, because there are other issues, and that is where the scale comes into the picture. As you scale up, there is a competitive advantage which comes, along with the scale that you get. Okay. Otherwise, they are more busy in day to day, fighting the business requirements and all this, different other requirements. So that is where we are. I think we have a long way to go, and we want to get back to 50% contribution of the export coming from the MSME. And let me again remind and request the fraternity that it's very important to be, embracing sustainability. Otherwise, we are going to lose that share in the export as well.
Right, and of course, manufacturing will be a will be a cornerstone of that to achieve that aim. So it will only be prudent to have sustainability in your operations to go forward. And Garima, I'll come back to you now. And you mentioned a bit previously on smaller cities and how they've been able to, how there is an opportunity over there, but a lot more is what needs to be done even in even in those cases. But in overall, if I wanted to check with you that how can smaller enterprises venturing into the sector be encouraged to adopt more sustainable building models, like some of the new entrants, and what are some of the early trends, the new trends that you're seeing in this?
So I think there are two parts to it. One is the people who are building technologies for people in MSMEs. So MSMEs themselves building such solutions. Second is the MSMEs adopting the solutions. So when it comes to, first of all, MSME adopting the solution, because there needs to be enough demand in the market for anybody to create that supply, there have to be enough incentives for them also in the market. So interestingly, we look at the other countries outside, green financing is something which is very, very lucrative. So if you're coming up as an MSME who is to adopt these technologies, you of course will be thinking about, are there any cost implications to it? And you might make it really, really affordable. At the same time, they do want to understand what is the merit in adopting this? Why am I even doing it? A governmental push definitely sets the ball rolling across anything. If you think about why are we such large users of UPI? If there hadn't been some few things that had happened at that time in the market, I don't think we would have been these kind of digital payers that we are today in the world. So there has to be a government push, impetus from there. Without that, there's no mandate which is going to be set, because there are enough and more codes which are available via the building, but none of those are mandatory. So it's very easy to get out of those as well. Second is the companies who are actually developing these solutions. So if there is enough demand in the market, then the one who create these supplies, what they have to keep in mind, you're not creating a niche, amazing technology. At the end of the day, no matter how niche the technology is, it has to be available to a mass. You don't want to be providing it to 1% of people. Otherwise, the entire idea of sustainability will always stay a myth. There are enough and more companies who create solution because they say, we really cater to 1% of the market. And these are different solutions. I'm not talking about the ones who create sustainability. But for anybody who wants their solutions adopted at scale across cities, across geographies, agnostic of anything and everything, agnostic of who their end customer is, large or small, then they have to create technologies like that. You cannot be like, okay, my thing cost delta percentage more than what is available in the market because this is what I'm creating. If you're creating something, and this is something that I have learned through my journey, that you might create a really, really brilliant product and you might go to the market and say that, this is really good, adopt it, and you are going to get your ESG goals in place. You're going to help decarbonize the entire world. But at the end of the day, if that comes at a cost, which somebody does not have interest or a reason to pay for, then that becomes very difficult. So I think both the part of the balances have to be equally aligned in adopting and creating technologies. And I think only when those scales are weighed, then it will make more and more sense for the market to be adoptive of certain technologies. When things move at a scale where certain parts become a mandate or become so easily available that they become lucrative enough, I think until and unless those things are happening and people are talking about creating, okay, there is this amazing technology available, but it either comes at this much price or it is not even available here, we're just going to be talking about it across a lot more years for that. So, yeah.
Okay, right. Right. I want to just come back once again to Abhishek and talk a little about the trends when it comes to adoption of more alternative and sustainable practices in the F&B sector. We spoke up a little bit about it previously, but you could tell us more about it. And of course, are consumers also leaning to more green preferences?
So exactly, consumers are very utilitarian, that is the basis. And they would like to maximize the benefit what they have. So in terms of, be it nutrition, be it price, I think, and taste, these are the three pillars on which any product is judged. And then I would say the green claims are reinforcement behaviors. They are, once you tick all the boxes of taste, price, and convenience, then the green part will let consumers stick to those purchases because then they'll feel good about their choice. If we have green solutions which are more expensive, then we'll have a small adoption curve. We'll have not many consumers adopting en masse. So I think that is where, we come in, and companies in this space are really doing it different than what is being done in the Western world. In the Western world, the green alternatives or the meat or the dairy alternatives are mostly at a significant premium to meat and dairy. Whereas in India, if you want a mass adoption, that will not happen. That is why if you look at, just think about a soya chap market, it's a upwards of 1,000 crore market with no significant organized player, but there's a pull from the consumer because they are finding it tasty and it's being sold at an affordable rate. So it is being adopted by restaurant partners also. And that is being eventually given to the consumers. So I believe India rolls very differently. I think we are very, very value conscious as consumer segment. So therein, that is why, and again, in the plant-based meat category, if I talk about frozen storage and logistics is not as well established in India as compared to the Western world. So again, so convenience aspect is taken out if you don't have shelf stable formats. Otherwise, it gets restricted in the localized geography. So I think this is where some important takeaways are there. Of course, health concerns, I think with guys like Food Farmer and some of the guys who are pointing on label reading. So that has also come into play very much strongly. So clean label products with healthier ingredient list, I think that is what people are looking for. So I think it's a big market. Most importantly, we have to realize that India is also culturally very varied. And when you talk about food, what may work in, say, South India may not work in East India, what may work in North India may not work in West India. So if you go more to an ingredient play rather than to a finished format, think about, a biryani, a Lucknowi biryani and a Hyderabadi biryani will be, and a Kolkata biryani will be very different. So to gain the maximum large scale or take the mass consumers, I think we have to do more of a basic ingredient play. For example, a chicken or a paneer will have a much larger market rather than a nugget or a sausage or a chicken nugget or a sausage. So that is where I think the companies in this space should look at these opportunities. Of course, the ready to eat market is significant, but I think the ingredient play where we are also tying up with a lot of B2B partners, because this space is undercapitalized. So to forget about creating a brand, to create a category, you need strong capital. But how do you go around it? Get a good product which ticks all the boxes, and then while you're selling your own consumer products, tie up with big chains and restaurant partners and hotel partners so that their reach is also added to these products. So this is where I say that, of course, India is a large market, but again, value conscious market. It is up to the businesses to, tick all the boxes while having the green claims. For example, the space of plant-based alternatives, sustainability is embedded in that. For example, The Economist has cited our company, a small company from small city, as one of the 3 global best practices to achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, where in that list, Danone, which is world's largest dairy company, has also been featured. So that there was never an attempt to get some of those claims. It was only to give a good value product to the consumers. But since sustainability is embedded, so this is where I think the opportunities presents to a lot of MSMEs, that you can select spaces where sustainability is, as previously mentioned, is not a positive externality. It's embedded in the systems. And then you will ride the wave, because then there are so many positives which come about. Because you have done the fundamentals properly. So obviously these reinforcement will propel you faster as compared to conventional businesses. Yeah.
Right. So I think customized solutions for the Indian market and value consciousness and culturally varied, all those aspects need to be kept in mind when we are talking about a market as diverse, as diverse as India.
Absolutely.
India and the kind of cultures and regions it has. Right. And on a similar note, Tejasvi, I just, want to ask you, Abhishek spoke a lot about, how it is very different when it comes to the India market on a certain number of parameters. In terms of foodpreneurs integrating tech into their operations, are you seeing that kind of customization or tech which Abhishek spoke about to make the end product more suited for India and more resilient also to shifting market dynamics?
Yeah. So technology improves revenue efficiency and visibility of any business, especially food business, because we get data, from time to time, right? So 2 parameters in which our business operate tech is, improving customer experience, thereby reducing the labor cost to a large extent, which is good in some ways and bad in some. So the a simple QR code based ordering system that enables people not just to view it, but to order it and then pay, reduces our operational cost by more than 20% and improves the customer, knowledge on the food itself through the values and, ingredients that we talk about, the macro values. I'm talking about the macro values. Improves the customer knowledge on the food ordering that they do. The second thing is moving the store the ingredients through a software itself, procuring them. Let's say a tomato that goes into a sauce, and when we do audit, if there is about, let's say, 100 grams of it gone, it's either pilferage or wasted. So to that extent, we're able to map using the current industry standard software that we're licensing only. So these two are predominantly excellent. On top of it, we can use data analytics for demand forecasting and understanding customer insights, thereby creating a menu that involves fewer raw materials but giving them enhanced presentations through understanding their needs and etc. More menu items but less raw materials. And in supply chain, IoT helps us to keep the perishability lesser, to automatically have the software push the ingredients that has lesser storage times. And kitchen automation is going on really big in US. We are hearing that restaurants are starting to use kitchen automations for Chinese woks and cooking biryanis with just coding in the specific ingredients. We're exploring India. Me representing my town, my community, we are exploring kitchen automations on how to make standardized kitchen practices. And inventory management, of course, needless to say, and e-commerce systems. With e-commerce systems, earlier we were relying on Swiggy, Zomato. Right now, DotPay has opened its way for us to create independent cloud kitchens that can reach out to customers, thereby saving up a lot on. So there is a layers of technology that is happening in this field. So delivery management is seamless and efficient, and then digital loyalty programs, waste management. Finally, 3D printing. 3D printing is also entering the food play. I think all this is excellent. We just need to choose the right thing, hold on to the right thing, not do too many things, because technology is also an expensive affair if we start dwelling on it. But having few things playing close to our chest and talking to our customers will probably move mountains for food industries and MSME sectors.
And that
creating
is what will lead to
sustainability
scalability as well.
Yes. Largely, yeah.
Okay.
And increasing profitability, during the scale, and absolutely staying true to the sustainability promises that we've done to our customers.
Right. That's great to know, and it's on a very heartful note that food in itself is also seeing a lot of innovation when it comes to sustainable practices.
Yes.
Yeah. So it has been a very insightful discussion on a number of sectors: manufacturing, real estate, food, and a general overview of the entire ecosystem and how it is shaping up. And it's obviously very clear that SMEs who adopt sustainability strategies can have multiple benefits, not just from reduced risks to opportunities for innovation, but also in terms of achieving greater scale and operational efficiency within the enterprise. I think that is very clear and evident, in terms of the kind of takeaways we have got, and in terms of, hearing all the views. Thanks a lot for joining us today and for taking out the time. It has been a very nice and insightful discussion with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, panel members, really.
Thank you for being here.
Everyone.
Very insightful.